find the home modules, and you can start fleshing out your separate page modules in that folder. But what I really want to show you is that after scaffolding up your code, you can go ahead and run it directly and watch for changes that I make in my code. Okay, you can see I have a little problem. You can go ahead and run it right on your device. So what I'm going to do is reflect my iPhone right onto this screen using QuickTime. It's actually a nice little trick if you ever need to reflect your iPhone. And not for nothing am I known as Queen of the Apps, so that's a lot of apps there. But we're going to just go ahead and build this to device. So what's happening here is I'm using my wildcard iPhone distribution profile to go ahead and build right onto device. And behind the scenes, it uses the App Builder companion app to enable the placement of this app onto my device. And there is my basic scaffolded app right on device. So let's make a change in our code base and watch it be reflected live using live sync onto device. And as you can see, that little change I made to the action bar is reflected immediately when I make the code change. And you can see in the command line that the change I made was picked up and that it was transferred right onto the device with that application ID. So moving away from the command line, I'm going to go ahead and open up the web client of the Telerik platform, because this is another way that you can use the platform's power to really help your app development. Now, if you click Create App, you're presented with a whole series of options. This is one of the great things about the web app. So you have native script options and advanced options, which offer you even more choices. On the web, you can see your choices all kind of laid out for you up front. You can clone from a repository. You have lots of samples and templates all kind of out waiting for you. Now, once again, I want to create a native script app with TypeScript enabled, so I'm going to pick the native script blank template with Angular 2 ready to go here. Just going to create a new app. Now the web client's going to go ahead and load up this app, and there are going to be some processes that you can track at the bottom. Right now it's initializing, and let's just take a look at what it looks like. And once we open the app, we can see this very nice interface. I'm going to create a to-do for myself because I need a little retail therapy, so I'll just put in Go Shopping. And you can see that we have this sort of nice to-do interface. Now going back to the platform itself, I just want to show you how to go ahead and set up live sync from the web client. It's very elegant. Just make a change in your code, and then on your device you'll see a pop-up saying, you know, it's live syncing. In this case, there's a little bit of a problem because I have a mismatch of versions, but it's not a showstopper. The companion app does its job, and you can see that we have been live synced. So the need to fix that mismatch issue, and it's a problem of the module versions, I'm going to go ahead and show you the Properties tab in the web client, which will allow us to do a couple of things here. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and bump up my native script version to 2.3, which is listed as experimental, but it's going to go ahead and install node modules, as you can see in the bottom. And you can see here that in the Properties tab, we have upgraded our Angular version and our node modules version. Now you can go over and take a look at the NPM tab in the Packages tab area, and you can really go to town by installing all kinds of interesting NPM packages that you might want to use. Now just to demo this, I'm going to install Moment.js, which is that nice library that you can use to manage dates and times. And it gives me a lot of options here. I can go ahead and install it. Very quickly it's done. And you can see the version that it's using. And you can also view exactly what you did install. And indeed, I installed 2.15.2 of Moment.js. And if you go back and take a look at your base package JSON file, you can see all those changes reflected. Now the last thing I want to show you in our web client is the very nice code completion and IntelliSense that we offer here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a TypeScript file, and you can take a look at the way I'm being prompted as I type to go ahead and, for example, use console.log. And the web client here is offering me a lot of prompts on all the little parameters that I can use, and it's very, very helpful as you are coding because it offers this kind of type-ahead help. Another thing that I really like here is that we have a couple tabs at the bottom. We have our Output tab, which will list what's going on. You can kind of, you know, have an idea of what's happening in the background as you're making changes in building. And you also have an Errors tab. Unfortunately, we have no errors, but if we did, they would be listed here, and you can get an idea of any problems that you need to debug. Okay. Okay, so I want to just switch gears here to show you what a Windows developer might experience using Visual Studio Code and the App Builder extension, which is amazing. Now, to install the extension, I went to Platform on the web and opened up the Downloads area. And here you see that there is a list of tools. And the very first one is the extension for Visual Studio. So I'm just going to download that and install it. Now, once you've installed that extension into Visual Studio, you're going to see an App Builder tab here with a nice drop down. And basically, you're going to park yourself right in that tab. So the client here offers several ways to get code into your projects. One is from the cloud. So these are things that I've already created actually on the web app, but we're not going to do that. Instead, you can also take a look at the samples that are offered. Here on the native tab, we have the Sample Groceries app, we have Friends, Fitness, Cuteness, and Photo Album. We have some other options here. You can really dig deep into the APIs. You could get those if you wanted to. But instead of taking those approaches, I'm going to go ahead and skip over to the Telerik platform start page and just click New Native Script App using the templates that are offered. I'm going to go ahead and call this app Kittens for the reasons that are going to become apparent pretty soon. And I'll just open up the Solutions Explorer and start in on this. So here you can see in the package.json file we have the standard scaffolding that we would expect. And what we're going to do though is we're going to start making some changes in the home folder. And I'm going to go ahead and start showing you the IntelliSense and the code completion that Visual Studio offers you. And it's kind of flashing a little bit, but you can see that there is a considerable amount of IntelliSense that's being offered to us in the TypeScript. I'm just going to paste in some code here that's going to bring some kittens to show us on our app. Change the template URL and just change that to home component. So moving over to the HTML file here, I'm going to change that stack layout to a scroll view, so that we can scroll along and watch the kittens as they're brought back from the service. So I'm going to add a wrap layout because this wrap layout is actually going to enable the building of a card layout. I'm going to go ahead and add an ng4 loop into my stack layout. You can see that it's trying to help me with the IntelliSense here. I'm going to loop over the kittens array that I just added to my component there. And with all this code completion, this app is basically writing itself, but I'm going to go ahead and add an image with a source that I'm binding to kitten, which is the image that's being pulled back from placekitten.com. I'm going to go ahead and add a width of 40% to the stack layout so that the wrap layout will know that it's going to be laid out on a percentage-based level, and it's going to be a card layout with the alignment centered. And you can see all this nice code completion going on here. Very helpful. So let's see, I need a label here, and I'm just going to add a basic text. I'm going to just call it menu. In Angular, I need to close these tags, so close the label, give it a little horizontal alignment of center as well, and we're going to give it a class. Actually, it can be class, not class name, and it can be just called text, just to give it a little bit of style. And we're going to just paste in some styles that I've already prepared. That's to give color to the page and the action bar. We have a card here that has a little radius on it. And then we'll go ahead and add that class of card to the stack layout. Okay, at this point we are ready to go ahead and do this routine of building one more time. We're going to build an app package to my iPhone. Looks a little bit different in Visual Studio, but we can go ahead and pick our wildcard provision and build for iOS. Here's my QR code that came right up. I'm going to go ahead and clumsily scan this to my device. Sorry, there you go. Scan it to my device. Here it comes, the scanned content. We're going to install kittens. Companion app's going to do its job. And here are the cute little kittens coming from placekitten.com. Now, if this has not sold you on App Builder, I don't know what's going to. I'm going to pass the mic over to Rob at this point, and he's going to tell you about some more goodies to expect from Telerik Platform. Thanks for listening.
Alright, thank you so much, Jen. That was really great. Honestly, having been part of App Builder and the Telerik platform team for a while now, it's really exciting to see how the product is evolving to address these new developer needs. But now it's my turn, and as you can see on the screen, my name is Rob Lauer, and I have the pleasure of showing off some of the latest from other parts of the Telerik platform that really help bootstrap your app development experience. Now, we're also going to briefly touch on some of the updates coming up in the near future for App Builder and the rest of the Telerik platform. And just as a reminder, if you have any questions, you can use the Q&A widget provided or the Ask Telerik hashtag on Twitter. Otherwise, hunt me down afterwards at Rob Lauer on Twitter, and I will do my best to personally answer your questions. So what I'm first going to talk about today is the Telerik platform Views service, formerly known as Screen Builder. And I'm bad with names, so you'll probably hear me use both terms going forward in the demo. Now, the Views service has been around for a while now, and it's been a big part of how many developers bootstrap their apps and scaffold a variety of pages or views. And not only are we scaffolding views, but we're doing it with purely visual tools. So zero coding is required when using the Telerik platform Views service. Now, I do want to bore you with a quick slide to make sure we're all crystal clear on the benefits of using the Views service, because it really can speed up your time to market. Now, the first is the ability to choose from multiple view types. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, the views are the screens or pages of your app, right? And we offer you a master detail view of your data with full editing capabilities. We also have a view that lets you create a custom form, a native mapping view, a view to authenticate your users, among even others. Now, of course, your UI is only as powerful as the data you have behind it. This is why we allow you to visually bind these views to your existing data sources. Now, we support RESTful APIs with JSON, OData, Progress data sources, as well as Telerik backend services, which is also part of the Telerik platform. Now, next up is navigation and theming. You can link views together with custom navigation. You can also theme your entire app with just a few clicks. Finally, the Views service supports both hybrid development with Cordova and native development with NativeScript. Now, of course, going along with today's theme, the code created by using this tool can optionally be generated with Angular 2 support. Now, this is an exciting new development that we'll be rolling out in the coming weeks. Now, before I get into that demo, there's a great quote here. The way you get programmer productivity is by eliminating lines of code you have to write. Now, interestingly enough, this is from Steve Jobs back in 1997 at Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference. Not to digress, but it's a fantastic watch that you can find on YouTube. But what Steve is getting at here is that writing less code saves us time and reduces bugs, right? It improves efficiency. This is really what we're going after here with the Telerik platform. We want to enable developers of all skill levels to quickly scaffold up those most basic parts of your app and get you into coding as soon as possible. Alright, let's switch over to my browser and look at a demo of the Views service. Now, I've decided I want to take a bold step forward in my career and set up a series of NativeScript retail stores across the US and Canada. Now, of course, in order to do this, one supporting step will be creating a mobile app for my customers to, let's say, browse store locations across the two countries, even eventually maybe create purchases online, view inventory, that kind of stuff. So as you can see, I've already initiated this app in the Telerik platform using the Views service. Now, behind every great app is data, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our data. So we're going to head to the Data tab here, and we're going to add a data provider. Now, I happen to already have a Telerik Backend Services data provider set up. And let me select it here. It is called NativeScript Stored Data, appropriately enough. And I can check here to actually enable offline support, so my users can use this app when they're in an offline scenario. Now, with my data associated with my app, I'm going to navigate back to the views. And let's have our first view be a master detail view. This lets me demonstrate a parent-child relationship in my data. Now, let me hide this little warning here so we can see everything. And I want to title my view Store Countries, since I'm very original in my naming. We'll see it when I bind my data. My data provider is already selected. And I want to make sure I choose the right content type. A content type is basically like a database table. So I'm going to choose my stores by country. And I get my friendly little warning here because I chose a different content type, a different data source effectively. And you'll see here, I'm not going to go through this in detail now, but you do have the option here of enabling create, edit, and delete right within here. So if you want to have that full CRUD interface on top of your data, it's simple as basically clicking some boxes and doing some minor configuration to do so. Instead, we're going to go down here a little bit, and we're going to set up our basic fields, and we want to make sure country is chosen here. Now, this looks all good to me for now, so let's just hit apply and see what happens in our simulator on the right. As this loads, you can see I get a list of my countries which I support, USA and Canada, along with the title that I entered there. Now, the simulator is great. Obviously, this is an embedded simulator in a web browser, so we're not doing a 100% true replication of iOS and Android devices, but it's pretty darn close to what you're going to see on a real device. And there are other options here. We can actually switch through multiple different devices. We can switch through different versions of an operating system. We can rotate the device around, and we can reload the view and all that kind of stuff. But let's focus on our app for now. So I've got a list of countries here, and now I want to, let's make this a little bit fancier. Let's maybe add a map behind this. So let's add another view, and it's going to be a map. And the title, we're going to say native script store map.
So I've got a list of countries here, and now I want to
and make sure our content type is chosen. We do want native script stores. And in our options here, in our client-side options, we're going to show these items on a map. And you can see here we're leveraging Mapbox. Now, Mapbox is great because it's a free and open source mapping provider that lets you use OSM or OpenStreetMap mapping tiles. Now, I do need a free Mapbox access token to enable this map, so let me go and copy that right now. Alright, now I can paste it back in here. And I want to make sure that the geopoint that I'm showing on the map is the location I've specified, which is latitude and longitude. And then when I display my data, I'm going to choose, let's say, the name of the store. Let's apply this and see what happens. Alright, great. We see a map here with my stores in Canada and the US. And when I choose on some individual ones, you'll see that here's my native script store in Madison, Wisconsin. I've got one in Nashville. Got one in Toronto. Man, I'm all over the place. Ottawa, Boston, and then way up in Banff. So this is great at all, but there's no real association between those two views, right? We have a list of countries on one view, and then we have a map on the other. Well, there's got to be a way to link those two dynamically. And sure enough, if I head back to my initial list of countries, I can scroll down here, and I can choose item action. And I can say, for an item in this list, when I tap on it, I want to open an existing view with related content. So I'm going to open up my native script store map. And these two views are linked by one field, which in my case, in my data source, is a country link, which is just a way of associating one record in one table with another record in another table. So let's hit apply. Alright, let's see what happens now when I choose USA. Sure enough, I only get a view of data with my USA countries, and I can go back and hit Canada, and sure enough, there's my Canada-based stores. Now, one thing you can't see because my browser window is kind of small here is that I have navigation down here automatically set up. Now, in this kind of scenario, it's nice by default to have that default tab-based navigation, but really for this kind of an app, I don't want to include that, so I can go to each view and I can customize my navigation by saying, don't include this app in navigation, or don't include this view rather in my app navigation. And likewise, I can go to my other view here, and of course I can turn this off as well. You'll see I also have options for choosing an icon to associate with that navigation if I would like to. In fact, in this case, I could choose a map or a globe icon if I want to get really fancy. But for my purposes, I don't want to remove. I just want to remove that. And there we go. So let's simulate this from the beginning. So here's my app. I choose US and Canada. and I can display any data I'd like to in here as well. So obviously this is an extremely oversimplified example, but it gives you an example of how you can kind of bootstrap this app development by outlining all these different views you might need. And of course, again, relating back to the theme of this entire webinar, is that what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to have this code be generated to fully support Angular 2. Now how would I do that? Well, if I go over here, I can choose code. So you see, views is kind of the first step, again, where we're kind of initializing our app, we're bootstrapping all these views, but then I can navigate to our code, which initiates the app builder coding environment, which lets me get into the nuts and bolts of my code and start creating some customizations. Maybe I want to add some NativeScript plugins, or maybe there's other things that I need to do in code that I can't do with visual tooling. So I hope this has been really helpful for you. I'm going to head back to my slides here because I have a few extra little tidbits I think you'll like. Alright, the next topic I wanted to cover quickly is Kendo UI, and specifically Kendo UI and how it relates to Angular 2 and NativeScript. Now, you probably know of Kendo UI as a full-featured JavaScript framework for building web and mobile apps with tons of UI widget options. Well, when Angular 2 came about, we realized that by leveraging Angular 2 along with Kendo UI and NativeScript, you could truly create cross-platform apps for web and native mobile. Well, how exactly? Well, we have completely rewritten the Kendo UI components to work flawlessly with Angular 2. This means that by leveraging the Angular 2 architecture, you can have 100% shared backend code between your web and mobile apps. Your mobile app UI is created with NativeScript, and your web UI is generated with HTML and Kendo UI. This again means less code, less work for you, and probably a huge fat raise from your boss, right? Now, you can learn more about our Angular 2 support with Kendo UI at telerik.com/kendo-angular-UI. Now, if you'd like to see this in action, I highly recommend that you take a look at this repo we have up on GitHub. It's at github.com/telerik/ng2-dashboard. I'll give you a second to write that down. But it really is a gorgeous demo app with a dashboard UI that can be run on the web along with native iOS and Android mobile apps. Alright, now our time is a bit limited here, but there have been some behind-the-scenes updates lately, with more coming very soon. Now, even though this is a bit random in order, I do think you'll appreciate most of these improvements. Now, the first is full cloud build support for iOS 10 and Android 7. Now, today apps you build with App Builder and the Telerik platform are fully compatible with iOS 10 and Android 7, of course. However, we are in the process of adding cloud build support for these updated platforms. This means that shortly you'll be able to access the full breadth of the latest APIs provided. Cordova developers, I know it seems like we talk a lot about NativeScript these days, and for good reason. However, we definitely continue to support hybrid development with the latest releases of Cordova, as soon as our team has a chance to verify and validate them. And for NativeScript developers, of course, we have improvements for you coming up. One big one that I'm happy to announce is the ability for NativeScript apps to use plugins from any source. Previously, due to security considerations, you were limited to which plugins you could use with our cloud build servers. Now, however, we will be sandboxing all builds, which means you can use absolutely any plugin you want going forward. And we are also supporting the latest version of Visual Studio from Microsoft. Now, this should be no surprise at all, but you'll be pleased to know that we will be ready when the new version of Visual Studio ships this year. And last but certainly not least, you love us for our cloud builds, so we are also working on improving the build times to make your cloud builds even more efficient and more reliable than they are even today. And with that, thank you for listening. I'm going to go ahead and send it back to Jen now.
Thanks, Rob. Hey everybody, Jen here again, and I'm just going to take this part of the webinar to take a little trip down memory lane. I'd like to take a look at where we're coming from with the 2.3 release and where we're headed towards with the 2.4 release and beyond. So let's just start by taking a look at NPM, and if you search under NativeScript on NPM, you'll come up with 359 results as of a couple days ago, and about 200 of those are actually plugins that for the most part are community generated. So we have a very healthy plugin ecosystem, and that is very exciting to see because it seems to me that the healthier the plugin system, the better the runtime. Another great indicator of the health of the runtime and of the project is the downloads that we're seeing for NativeScript. And we're up to 24,000 downloads as of October 2016. We really love to see this kind of upward spike, upward trend in the downloads. Very cool. It's also great to take a little visit to the NativeScript repo. NativeScript is an open source project, so you can always take a look at the repo, and you can see that we've got over 8,500 stars on this GitHub repo. A lot of commits, a lot of branches, and a lot of contributors, and that's really exciting to see. We also want to encourage you to follow us on Twitter. We have 35,000 followers on Twitter right now, and we're always announcing new and cool things on Twitter. And with regard to our relationship with the Angular community, we're so pleased to be taking part in big conferences like ngConf and Angular Connect. That's actually me and TJ at last year's ngConf. We're going to be there again this year, I'm sure. And TJ and I and the whole team will be all hands on deck at this coming ngConf for a 6-hour seminar workshop on how to build NativeScript apps using Angular. So look forward to that and put it on your calendar. Recently, we hosted the very first NativeScript Developer Day as well. This was a sort of love fest in Boston for everything NativeScript. It was a great time with a lot of the engineering come from Sophia to join us, and a great time meeting folks from the community who have supported us. Speaking of community support, I'm so happy to give a shout out to Isam, our friend in Paris, for this unbelievably fantastic WebStorm IDE plugin for NativeScript. It's under active development. It is amazing. WebStorm is such a great IDE, and so many people love it, and this is a fantastic plugin for it. Speaking of our amazing community, did you know that we have 2,400 great, amazing developers on the NativeScript community Slack channel? You're welcome to join us there and party with us there. We have a great time, and we have a lot of people who are absolutely ready to help you with your NativeScript project. Another really great resource that's available for you is my website, actually, called nativescriptsnacks.com. These are little snippets and video content, all community generated, that can help you with, getting past those little issues that you always are going to encounter when developing a mobile app. We have 70 snacks already on there, and the usage is just on slow and steady climb. I'm very happy to see this. And finally, one more resource I just want to draw your attention to is actually on nativescript.org on the docs side, and they are 60 code samples that are actually curated by us, by engineering. They have unit tests behind them, so they're always up to date and updated, and they're all of the little bits and pieces that you need to craft your NativeScript app, both on the UI and in the back. And there's a lot of great code snippets on here that you can use, that you can copy and paste into your own app. It's extremely helpful resources. So I just want to draw your attention at this point to some of the new things that we have offered recently and some of the new things that are coming up in the 2.4 release. One of the things that we released recently is support for iOS 10. Some of the new iMessage things that came out recently, we do support those, and you can take a look on our GitHub repo and get instructions on how to integrate those into your apps. Okay, so moving away from the past, past is done, we're going to let it lie, and we're going to build on it by looking forward toward what we can expect in the 2.4 release that's coming up very, very shortly. So one way to preview things that are coming in future releases is to use a next build. So you can use nightly builds as they're released onto NPM periodically by the team, just by uninstalling your current NativeScript version and installing the next version. You're going to need to do a little bit of editing to your app, and you're going to need to install the next version of Android, iOS, and the core modules. Then just do an NPM install, and you can preview things that haven't even been officially released. So that's really convenient. And one of these things you might want to preview, and that's going to be released in 2.4, is the ability to use per-side borders in NativeScript. This seems like something that nobody would care about, but it's actually very much requested, and it comes in really, really useful, surprisingly so. And it's really fun to experiment with it, even if you don't want to make something as weird looking as this demo. But it's a good thing to have on hand. Another super exciting thing that we're pleased to announce for in an upcoming release very shortly will be what we call Live Edit. And to demo it, I'm just going to open up this video that was produced by engineering. And what Live Edit is the ability to make incremental changes within your connected app as you are editing your code. It's sort of like live sync on steroids. It's kind of amazing. So you can see what's happening here is that she's going to change that why delete message to something a little bit different. So here we are going to show a page indicator, and then try this again, and you can see that there was a little indicator. There's a little hard to see, but now we're going to change the words why delete to deleted. Just save, and try to delete something, and you can see that change just immediately show up in your app. This is kind of mind-blowing, so I'm really excited to give this a try. Also coming soon is another of these amazing features that is extremely heavily requested by our users, and that is the introduction of background workers, background threads, or web workers, which will really boost the performance of an intense app that needs to have processes running in the background. So what it is it's support for JavaScript execution on background threads. Normally native script apps run on one thread. Well, we're introducing multiple threading, and we have this ability to make long-running processes move to this worker thread so that your fluid UI can continue to be fluid. This is such an exciting feature for NativeScript. I really can't wait to give it a try. Another really nice innovation that we're unveiling is this ability to use NativeScript in an existing native app. So if you have an iOS or Android app that you don't want to convert entirely to NativeScript, you can go ahead and extend your native app by including a NativeScript app within it. So you can take a look at how to do this. We have good documentation on the blog that Vladimir put together, and it's a really cool and neat thing to try. And one of the last things I want to talk about is the very beautiful NativeScript theme. And this is actually a project that was spearheaded by our community and was built by members of our community with help from DevRel and with help from engineering. And what it does is it allows you to, out of the box, have this beautifully themed NativeScript app with all the stylistic beauty and tweaks that you don't have to hand code yourself anymore, which is terrific. So we have all of these modules styled very nicely for you. Here's a nice side drawer that you can use, very beautifully styled with some nice icons here. A very cool list with actually some list with thumbnails and a multi-line list. There is also the ability to use different themes. We have a default theme, which you're seeing, a light theme, which is very similar, this dark theme, custom themes that you can tweak with your own color schemes, and then the bootstrap theme, which is a little bit different, palette. And we have a modal that you can use, and it's just a very exciting thing to see developed from within the community, and it will be available out of the box by default for your NativeScript apps going forward. Now, last but not least, I want to just do a little demo of something that I find so exciting in the NativeScript offerings, and that is the arrival of Flexbox. Now, if you have had any experience with dealing with the layouts in NativeScript, sometimes they can be a little challenging to wrap your head around. So we are offering Flexbox as an alternative. So you can take a look at the demo, and this is all open sourced on GitHub. And take a look at how you can make your content flow by tweaking the parameters of your Flexbox powered app. This is the repo, and it has just some ideas of how to proceed. So in this example, which I borrowed straight from the repo, all we're doing is importing Flexbox from the UI just as a standard layout, setting some constants, and then we're exporting a couple of functions to enable the elements of our Flexbox layout to shrink or grow as we click these buttons. So here we have some buttons set up to click, and then we have Flexbox layout right there as a container. And as you tap the buttons above, the little labels in this Flexbox container are going to flow along the screen, as you would expect in any Flexbox-enabled app to do. If you want to learn more about Flexbox, NativeScript's version of it, how it relates to the Android version of Flexbox versus the web version of Flexbox, and how we're going to be supporting Flexbox CSS in the future, please bookmark this repo right here. It's the tests involving layouts, and there's a Flexbox layout README. It's quite informative, and also keep an eye on the blogs. I'm going to be writing a nice tutorial on how to enable Flexbox in your NativeScript apps as soon as I can. I look forward to trying this out myself for my own apps, and I'm sure you do too. So that's it for what's kind of new and hot in NativeScript, where we're coming from, where we're going in 2.4. I'm so excited to see the future developments and what you all are going to be building. So I'm going to pass the torch over to Burke, and thank you very much again for listening.
Thanks, guys. Wow, those were some really good demos. I mean, as a developer, I don't like PowerPoint too much. Not a fan of slides. Love to see code. Great demos. Thanks so much for that today. I did want to point out that we're still taking some questions on Twitter now with the Ask Telerik hashtag. I really want to give this NES Classic system away to someone with the best questions, so make sure you get your questions out there. Still time to win this thing. If there's not any great questions, I just have to keep it. I have to keep it. And I don't want to do that. I want to give it away. Some good stuff rolling in, so keep it coming. I also wanted to make sure that you follow these Progress and Telerik Twitter accounts. This is the best way to keep in touch with us, to find out if you're going to win that system, right? We talked about, and YouTube when it's published there, the webinar recording from today. So make sure you follow us. And also, it's a great place to get the latest news, not just on the platform, not just on native scripts, but about all the exciting things that Telerik and Progress are doing. And there's a lot of stuff coming. You don't want to miss it. This is the best way to stay connected with us. I want to talk about UI for NativeScript. UI for NativeScript is a set of premium UI components that we offer for NativeScript applications. So while we ship some of the really all the fundamental things out of the box, things like buttons and list views and labels and text boxes, a lot of times applications need more than that. And there's currently over 300 plugins for NativeScript out there that you can use. A UI for NativeScript is a set of plugins just directly from us. UI is what we do, it's what we know, and so we offer these controls to you. Now, these controls are some very advanced controls. These would be things like a list view that has pull to refresh and that has swipe to edit and drag and drop ordering. A side drawer, right? That little hamburger menu with the slide out drawer on the side. These things are all really important to applications. You find them in all modern applications. We actually offer those for free as a part of UI for NativeScript. We also have a calendar, there's some charts, and a data form. These are all brand new components. They're all part of UI for NativeScript. So go ahead, you can grab that today and start using that inside your NativeScript applications. And of course, all this works seamlessly with the Angular 2 integration inside of NativeScript. Now, it's important to talk about the impact of Angular 2 and the adoption. I think something like 1.5 million people currently use Angular 1 or Angular in general, and almost half of those are already using Angular 2 by some estimations. So there's a lot of people that are out there using Angular, a lot that are adopting Angular 2. Even in our current surveys, upwards of 30 to 40% of people are already working with Angular 2, and another 30% are currently evaluating it right now with plans to implement soon. And this is especially true if you are working with Angular 1. Now, if you're working with Angular 1, moving to Angular 2 might feel a bit daunting. To help with that, we've created a resource called ng-migrate. Now, ng-migrate is going to help you migrate those Angular 1 projects to Angular 2, and we're going to walk you through all of the different concepts that it's going to take to migrate an application, trying to make that learning curve a lot flatter so it's a lot easier to make the switch. This was created by our own Todd Motto. You can find it at ngmigrate.telerik.com. We cover all of the different concepts that you need to know. He's breaking it down for you there. I've even contributed an article over there, so that's how you know it's good, right? If I've contributed, then it's great. But Todd's put most of this together. He's a fantastic trainer. I love the content here. Great for learning Angular 2, and I've used quite a bit of it myself. So check that out if you're looking to learn Angular 2. ngmigrate.telerik.com. We should also mention that Kendo UI is being rewritten from the ground up for Angular 2, which is a huge deal for us. So we're taking all of the world-class UI widgets in Kendo UI, which are currently based on jQuery, and we're rewriting those so they are pure Angular 2 components. That's really, really important to understand. Pure Angular 2 components. What exactly does that mean? Well, that means that we're not using any third-party dependencies in our code. We're not wrapping our existing widgets. We're not just giving you shells and wrappers. We are rebuilding things from the ground up, and that gives you a lot of advantages like speed. Angular 2 is really, really fast, up to 5 times faster than Angular 1. And if you wrap your components, you can't take full advantage of the speed, and we want to do that. So you're going to get the full advantage of all the speed brought by Angular 2. And that includes things like ahead of time compilation. So Angular 2 apps can actually be rendered on the server. The whole things or parts then can be rendered on the server using something called Angular Universal. We refer to this as ahead of time compilation, and then shipped down to the browser. And again, this results in a better experience, speed. It is a speed tweak for the user, results in a faster application, faster response time. And then lastly, it enables things like tree shaking. So when you send JavaScript code down to your user or your customer, they may be getting bits that they don't need. And it's really hard as a developer to send down only the bits, only the lines of code that users need to actually run these apps. Angular 2 supports tree shaking, and Kendo UI will support that tree shaking as well because it's built on Angular 2. And that means that as part of the build step in Webpack, Webpack will actually take the code and it'll shake out all the code that's not being used, so you're only sending the lines of code that are being used to the browser or to your NativeScript application, and that's really exciting. That's an optimization step that you just get for free with pure Angular 2 components. Right now we've got several of these, including the big one, the grid, right? That's the all-important one. We have charts, we have a lot of our inputs, and including internationalization, and then the themes and styling as you would expect. So you can grab these components today. They're ready today. They're in a beta state. We'd love for you to use them and let us know what you think. We have an RC coming in January. We're working really, really hard on that, and we're really excited to be able to deliver these components for Angular 2, built on Angular 2 from the ground up, the same Kendo UI you know and love. So that's coming your way. Be sure to check that out. So lastly, there's only one thing to do. Visit platform.telerik.com today and get started building your mobile applications. If you're already a platform user, then you don't need me to tell you this. You're probably already there. Check out all the new stuff that we've released today. Start building your applications with NativeScript. Take a look at that, and Angular 2 as well. And I think, Rob, are we going to do a Q&A? Going to answer some questions live? Okay, Rob's going to answer some questions live. So if you want to hang out on the line, you can do that. And Rob will be answering some live Q&A because we've gotten some great questions so far. So if you have to drop, it's no problem. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see everyone next time.
All right, great. Thank you to both Burke and Jen. This has been fun. We do have some time left for a Q&A, so let's get to some of the questions here. The first here, I'm planning on developing a NativeScript app, but I don't know whether or not to use Angular 2. What are some pros and cons? Well, this is a great question. In case we haven't made it clear to everyone here, Angular 2 is just an optional framework to use with NativeScript. It's not a requirement. This means you can leverage Angular 2 or use plain vanilla JavaScript. Now, as to the pros and cons, in my humble opinion, Angular 2 is really great for providing clear structure for larger, more complex apps. Angular also provides a dependency injection framework, a full templating system, and the ability to reuse code between mobile app and desktop web. Now, the downside of Angular 2 is probably the learning curve and the fact that it may be overkill for some smaller apps. Either way, I would highly suggest at least going through our tutorials for both Angular 2 and vanilla JavaScript that we have on nativescript.org before you decide. Alright, next question. Does App Builder support the latest version of Visual Studio? Absolutely, yes. You may have missed it during the webinar, but I did mention that we are supporting VS 15, as it is codenamed right now. We expect the final version to be released by the end of the year. And next here, I am a .NET developer, and I want to use NativeScript because of Angular 2, but I'm not comfortable with the XML syntax. This is a valid concern, but I would say that XML syntax for NativeScript is actually very close to XAML, since the folks who built it here at Progress come from a strong XAML background, so I think you'll be surprisingly comfortable with it. And the next question, let's see here. I don't really understand the differences between hybrid and native apps. This is a really good question. A lot of people fumble on this for sure. So hybrid technologies which use Apache Cordova run a mobile app from within a web view. This relies more on web technologies, while a native app is using each platform's technology, iOS or Android, and does not run within a web view. Now, our NativeScript framework produces truly native apps. So with NativeScript, you get full access to native APIs and full native performance. With Cordova and hybrid apps, you take advantage of more of your web skills, but you do sacrifice performance and sacrifice access to some of those APIs. Alright, next question here. Does NativeScript support Windows 10? Another good question, and one we are hearing more and more of lately with the new Surface line of products for sure. Right now, we do have teams working on Windows for NativeScript. I don't have a time frame to share, but just know that it is a huge priority for us right now. Alright, next, I've watched your recent webinars and it seems like you were talking a lot about NativeScript and not as much about hybrid app development. Are you still going to support Cordova? Yes, we feel pretty strongly that NativeScript is the path forward for the vast majority of mobile app developers out there. However, that being said, we will continue to support hybrid development with Cordova for the foreseeable future. And the next question here, I've struggled a lot with Cordova plugins in the past. Now I'm looking at NativeScript plugins. Any advice? So I'm guessing what this person is getting at is the lack of structure around Cordova plugins. To address this, we did create a marketplace at plugins.telerik.com where you can go and look at verified Cordova plugins. We are also getting a NativeScript plugins marketplace off the ground, so look for more information on that in the near future. Alright, these have been really great. I think we have time for one more question here. Let's see. Do I need a Mac to create iOS apps? So no, actually. If you are on Windows, you'll be happy to know that you can build for iOS without having a Mac at all. You don't have to get into Xcode or anything like that. You still need to be enrolled in the Apple Developer Program because the Telerik platform will be taking care of building and signing your app packages for you with your code signing identity. If you'd like to work around that during the development process, you can use the Telerik platform companion apps, which basically let you load your code on a device without actually building and signing it. Alright, I think that's all we have time for. Make sure you visit platform.telerik.com for your free 30-day trial. Also take a peek at nativescript.org for more information on the NativeScript framework itself. Thank you everybody. Have a great rest of your day.